Protocols are really the essential building block while designing any kind of application, whether it's an iPhone app, TV app, watch OS, or maybe anything. You will be spending a lot of time for making sure that your class follows a number of protocols. But what is actually a protocol? And for those who are already into the Apple development may already have the knowledge about how important the protocol is. But for the newbies, let me give you a simple example. And the best example that we can have about the protocol would be simply like a military school or maybe any other school as well. Now, when you take an admission in a military, you will be hired onto some post. Maybe that post would be a cadet, a major, or maybe a colonel, or anything like that. Now, when you get and join into a troop for a cadet, you need to follow some rules. And obviously, rules are a little bit different for the cadets and for the major. And these definitely make a little bit of difference. Like for example, the cadet might have to do some regular exercise onto the 4 o'clock, but majors maybe got relieved from that. They have to do some administrative work. But once you join into the major troop, you need to follow that protocol. It doesn't say who is going to follow, but once you say that you belongs to a major class, you need to follow those protocols. So this is going to be the protocol. So protocol is just a blueprint of the rules. It doesn't say who is going to follow, but whoever says, hey, I am in the protocol, that means that person or that class is going to follow that protocol. So the question arises, how do we define a protocol? Now it's very straightforward to define a simple protocol in the Swift, and things are really simple. I'm glad to see that. So if I simply say a protocol and give a name for that, for example, we are hiring some teachers out there, and let's just say this is a protocol for hiring the teachers. So I'll be simply saying hiring teachers, and we just say it like this, and that's it. This is our protocol. Now protocols may have some methods and some properties, but again, this will not say that what it should do. It will say that yes, these properties should be there, these methods should be there. So we can simply say that there are some signatures of the methods and properties. I'll just call them as methods right now. So these methods doesn't do anything in that. It just say that there is a func, and for hiring a teacher, there should be some teaching abilities. So I'll just simply say that as teach abilities, and what I'm typing. I cannot type and talk at the same time, but still I'm trying. So there should be some teaching abilities, and this should be a function. Now it can obviously have a return type or not, depending on your situation. And right now I'll just say that this returns a string, that it just say, hey, I have a teaching capability or I don't have a teaching capabilities, and likewise. And again, it can also have some properties. Now, while defining the properties, you should make one important point, that whenever you define a property inside a protocol, it should always be var. It cannot be a let. So now the property should be something like that. It should have, let's say, a master degree. So I'll just say have master's degree out there, and it can be a simply integer, and let's just say have degrees or have certificates. It would make much more sense out here. And it should have let's say it should have some certificates. It can be 3, 4, or can be anything. Now we are not done, but we are about to. Now once you define any kind of properties inside that, there is a rule for defining a protocol. Now rule inside a rule, that's ambiguity. But again, the rule simply says that you need to define whether your properties should be read only or read write as well. That means you need to provide the getters and setter. If you want simply your property to be gettable, you can simply say yes, that can be get. And if you want it should be settable also, then you can provide the set as well. Right now, let's just keep the things onto a simpler level, and we will have something like that. Okay, good so far, but how do we define any class or anything which follows that protocol? So let's define a class out there. And inside the class, let's just name it this class as hiring as well. And this class should follow a protocol. Now I put a colon, and that means I'm inferring it to the hiring teacher. Now this is it. That's it. You follow a protocol, but definitely we got an error because we are simply saying that we follow the protocol, but we are not following the rule. Now here is a quick sidebar. Maybe this time you want to simply inherit from some class. So I'll simply say there might be some super class out there. So I'll simply say the super class and separated by comma. You can have a syntax like that, but obviously you can only inherit from one class, so that would be making a sense out here. But if you want to have multiple protocol to follow up, you can have them separated by comma. But right now let's just not go into that much, and simply getting rid of this, and this makes sense. Okay, now we have got some properties and methods, and we told that we are going to follow the properties, but we are not following it. So we need to follow the rules. Now, obviously, this will make sense to you that once you have all the properties and the methods being defined inside the class that follows the protocol, you can add your own additional functionality. Obviously, this makes sense. Otherwise, why would I create a class? Okay. So let's first of all try to have the simple method that is teaching abilities. And again, I'll write a func and I'll have a teaching abilities. Now, teaching abilities out there is suggested by the Xcode, but this will not be the case while defining the properties. So this is how we do it. And it says it returns a string and it should have something like that. So I'll obviously directly return something like this. I have abilities. Okay, good so far, but we have followed the methods only, not the properties. So we need to again define the properties. So what I'll do, I'll just copy this to make sure that I don't do my favorite typos out there. And after the colon, I'll have int. And after that, I'll use a shorthand method of directly having my getter. Again, if you remember, whenever we have a getter, we need to say that we are going to return. So let's just say the user is having 4 certificates out there. And as soon as I save that, notice the error is gone. That means we are having all of the properties and the protocols being followed up. But again, you can define your own functions and all of the things. Like if I say, hello is my function out there, and I define it, and I simply say, just printing hello, and that's it. So obviously you are perfectly allowed to have your own properties, your own functions, and whatever you wish to have in your class. But the important point is you should follow the protocol. If you are saying so, you should have all the must-have features. Like this protocol says, you should have a feature of teaching abilities. You should have a feature of properties of having certificate. So these are compulsory. Apart from that, whatever you do that's up to you. It's simply like being in a school. A student let's say you are following a student protocol. That means you have to do your homework. You have to go to school regularly, but in the evening time, you play a guitar or maybe playing a basketball. It doesn't matter. You are feel free to do so. But again, you have to go to school. You have to do your homework. There are some protocols need to be followed. And protocol, I cannot put more stress out there that you will not be spending much of the time with defining your own protocols. Apple has already done that. You will be following the protocols in your classes.